Welcome back to Seriously Funny. I am your host, Smash Nord Kabir, and I tame narwhals. Today we're gonna get kind of deep into a topic that's recently crossed my mind, and I talked about purposelessness a few weeks ago, but we're gonna touch on that idea once more, and I will say that this episode is indirectly, at least, a little bit about me, and maybe you'll pick up on that. And if you don't, it's cool. I don't know how constructive this will be, and if you're not in a solid mental space, you may not want to listen to this. The first two sections, I would call it at this point. I usually have multiple sections in the podcast, but the first two parts of the podcast, I think it'll be fine. But the last one can get a little bit heavy, and so a quick disclaimer: if you're sad, maybe don't listen to this. It's not gonna be the most uplifting of things. However, if you're alone, if you feel alone in this conversation about purpose and direction, then it might help you. It might help you understand that, well, you're not alone, and maybe it'll uplift you in that sense. But with that quick disclaimer, let's get into it. If you're still listening, then you may want to find out more about me, or you may be lonely. Either way, I'm glad you're listening, and I will give my sympathies if this episode does make you a little sad or brings you down, etc., etc. So, this starts with engineering class about, was it 2 weeks ago? Maybe a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, 1 or 2 weeks ago. And the professor, after every class, there's a little questionnaire of just like some simple questions, not really, sometimes about the class, sometimes not about the class. In it, at the end of the little questionnaire, it's like 3 questions. It's not hard, it's not anything special. But at the end, it's like anything else you have to say, and then people type stuff in, and then the next class, he'll write some stuff on the presentation about some of the things people said, of course, without names. And one of the things that was written on there and that he read, it was, quote, "It's easy to figure out what you want, but hard to do it," end quote, or something along those lines, at least. And the moment I heard that, I disagreed. That's backwards. I think that's completely backwards. It's really hard to figure out what you want, but really easy to do it, from my experiences, from my understanding. And if you think it's really hard to do something that you want, then you don't actually know what you want, or you don't fully want it. That's pretty simple. That might sound mean, or if I said that to the person that typed the thing out, I probably wouldn't get the best of responses. But that's what I think. That's what I believe. That's what I understand. Because, when you have something and you know what you want, sure, it takes a lot of time to do something. But if you know what you want, it's not bad. And here's like a practical thing, like a project per se is really easy to do. Like a project at work, a project in school is really easy to do if you know what the end of it looks like. If you know, if like a science fair project, if you know what the poster board is going to look like, all you have to do is do it. You already know what it's gonna look like. You don't have to think anymore. You just have to do, and that's not hard. Doing is really easy. As long as you're sleeping, eating, your body's going to function. If you're breathing, your heart's beating, your body's going to function, and it's going to do whatever. Thinking, a little bit harder. It takes a lot of effort. And so the way we're defining hard is effort and energy rather than time. Because in terms of time, sure, figuring out what you want probably takes less time for most things. But in terms of what takes more effort, again, I say to my understanding, but I think this is legitimately true. It's just easier to do something when you know what you want completely. And so here's an example, like coding something. I hate coding, but one of the biggest things I hate in computer science classes is when you're given this project, and the project is do what you want. Just code something. All right, I hate those, because the hardest part about those projects for me is figuring out what you want. And I don't like coding. I don't want to do coding. It's not something I'm interested in or something I care about. And so, I don't think about that stuff ever. I don't think about situations where I need to code something. I don't think about that at all. And so it's like not fun when everyone knows what they're going to do. You were just forced in the class, and then you're vibing there like not knowing you're stuck, and everyone else seems like they know what they're doing, and by the time everyone starts, you're still sitting there thinking, because again, really hard to figure out what you want to do. However, and the thing is, like, first it's a general idea for me, and before I start working, I don't work when I just get a thought in my head. I work when I understand a full image of what the end is going to look like. Right, for this podcast, like even this episode specifically, everything's written out. I know what it's going to look like. I know what the editing process will be like. I know what I want it to generally sound like. I know the things I cut out. I know, the extra things I'm going to put in, even with the things I have written on my screen. And so, it's really easy to do. I just have to sit down in my chair, record it, press play, and cut some stuff out every here and there, mostly just blank spaces to cut down on time of not speaking at all. But when you understand what you want, and I understand what I want in these episodes, and hopefully my understanding and the things I want gets higher and the quality gets improved as I go on and such. But you get what I'm saying. I know what I want. It's really easy to do. It takes a long time. Like, let's say this episode ends up being 20 minutes. That's 20 minutes of recording. Of course, listening through the entire thing will take at the minimum 20 minutes, but then I have to do some extra stuff. So let's say that takes 30 minutes, and then I have to upload. I have to write the descriptions and go through timestamps, and all in all, it takes about like an hour per se for a shorter episode. For longer episodes, it takes 2 to 3 hours. But yeah, that's not hard for me. It's just a lot of time. Sure, 3 hours. But coming up with ideas for this isn't that bad, because I can literally do anything. And I have a giant list of ideas, and I kind of just pull from that, and random things will come to mind, and random things will happen. Like I hear this statement in engineering class. Anyways, big digression. The reason that this happens is like harder to think about what you want rather than do is again, you just have to find a way to do something when you know what you want, right? And with the internet and a small bit of thought, doing things honestly isn't that much effort anymore, and because you can figure out what to do. You can read books on how to do things. You just have to know what you want. Do you want to start a business? All right, what type of business? If you maybe you want to start a business, but you still don't know what you want completely yet, right? Or you don't want it enough, like I said earlier. Okay, what type of business do you want to start? Product or service? All right, service. What service do you want? Help people, scam people? What are you trying to do? Do you and what's the purpose? Do you want money? Like, why? And sometimes making a business is just a means, right? So if you want money, the business is a means to do that. If you want to help people, business is a means to do that, right? I mean, sometimes, I don't know, for some people, a want can be a mean. For other people, a mean can be a want. That's complicated, I guess, for some people to wrap their heads around. If that made no sense, whoops. But, if you have direction, if you know what you want, if you know what the end looks like, all you have to do is turn when the GPS tells you to. You feel me? Sure, it might take a while, but it's not hard. You just have to follow through. However, and that's easy, right? The doing. But figuring out what you want, you're confronted with the concept of infinity. And the really cool thing about this game, this life game, is that you can do what you want. However, one of the things that makes this game so complicated is that you can do anything. It's amazing, and yet it's also what makes it hard, what makes it challenging. Concept of life being easy or hard is something I should probably touch on. I touched on a little bit in the blog post, which is related to this episode. So if you want to go through that, you can go through that. It was uploaded on Wednesday. But yeah, without direction, you have to create an idea. You have to create a want, create an image in your head of the destination from literally nothing. And that's pretty tough. I mean, humans are pretty awesome, and I'm sure you've done it. I definitely do it. We create universes in our head, and we can do that. However, when you have to figure out what you want, you have to create an pinpoint image of a specific thing that relates to you personally out of infinity. One out of infinity. You have to find it, and that's the thing you want. Of course, that can change, and I guess we'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, that's the general framework. That's my disagreement and where this whole thing came from. Hopefully that got you something. And now I want to talk a little bit about being young and how this isn't as much of a problem, and how this does become a problem. How um, not knowing what you want in life in general, not even practically with a coding project, but in life, when you don't know what you want, how does this become a problem? And so when you're young, this isn't a problem, right? Of course, you don't know what you want, like what you want in life at the end of the day, like before you, what you want to do before you're dead. Because you're exploring, you're just learning, you're vibing. And if you're young, which most people listening to this are, so awesome. Maybe some of you guys don't think about this. I'm sure someone's listening right now. You know who you are, buddy. This hopefully, I don't think it affects him, but maybe you don't have a long-term life want, and that's cool, bro. If you're chilling, if you're living life, awesome. Some people won't find their want, their purpose until they're like 40. Whatever. It's cool. Just keep vibing, dude. But at this stage in life or at a younger stages in life when you're simply learning, you're just kind of like playing the main story of life per se. Just do some work in school, hang out with friends, play some video games, live your life, man. Vibe, listen to music, whatever. You chill. And you have fun, and this can last for a long time. Like, you can live your life effing playing the main story, go through school, go through a lot of college, and you can still be successful and materialistically successful. Go get a effing business degree in college, go get a good desk job that pays you. You don't know what work you're doing, but it pays you well. And so, you can, and even then at 40, you can still not know what you want. That's cool. It happens. Whatever. You don't have to be in a rush. Whatever. It's not an issue for some people. However, I guess we will touch on, when does it become a problem then, right? Like, when does this happen? When does this question or this thought of what you want become an issue? And as I said, some people don't understand when they're 40. The thing is, it doesn't happen at any certain age, right? So if you can go to 40, cool. Some people are 30, some people are 25, and that's when or at least some people when they're 30 will get the want question. When they're 25, they get the want question, and so age is ruled out. It's not an age thing. Like, it doesn't have to do with how old you are. It's not, one day you hit effing 38 and a half years old, and that day, just one day on like effing July 17th specifically, when you're 30 freaking 8, you're gonna get the question in your head, what do you want? No, that's not how it works, right? Not age at all. But then what is it, right? And I think the moment that this becomes a problem, when your purpose comes into mind, and when what do you want from life? This is also, the purpose comes into question, is when one day, one thought, one word comes into your mind. Why? And when that transpires, when that happens in the mind, the question of what you want becomes a problem, or it can become a problem. At least that's like the first seed. You can run away from this question, right? You can do drugs, you can do video games, other vices, just distract yourself and not think about it. Get as far effing away as you can. However, the question still remains. It's going to still be there, and it's still going to haunt you a little bit. Why? Why are you taking the drugs? Why are you playing so many video games? Why are you distracting yourself? Why are you doing things that you don't actually care about? Why? A little voice will whisper in your ear. And, not to say that the day you get the question, everything goes to crap. No, when you get the question and you start looking for the answer to why, it could be awesome. You can try things, you can start looking around in life, and for some people, you can experiment. For some people, this is awesome. Like, this is one of the greatest times. When they get the question, they have an awesome time figuring out what they want. I think it becomes a problem when after a long time you don't have an answer and the question keeps coming back. And the reason that you don't have an answer is likely because you didn't try much. You don't try much. You don't go out and try to figure out what you want. You just keep doing the same things. You just keep living the same life. You keep living the same cycle. You keep doing the same things that made the question arise in the first place. And so, of course, it's not going to go away, right? Well, Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Not going to happen. In other words, one of the things, like I said, contributes is like if you don't study or if you don't try. So, if the question comes back and you haven't studied for it, if you haven't experimented, if you haven't thought about it, problem, right? And there's probably other reasons that contribute, right? With all that said, though, about life, the hardest part about life, a little recap, I guess, is figuring out what you want. And when you figure that out, and it can change, of course, like I said, your purpose can change, the things you want can change, that's fine, that's normal for tons and tons and tons of people. It's okay to not know what you want, or it's okay to know what you want and to have it change. That's cool, whatever, dude. You don't have to stick to one thing. Again, every day you're learning, every day new things happen, and every day just by the nature of life, you'll learn things and you'll end up experimenting. Maybe even if you're running away from your problems with video games, you play one game, it changes your life, and you want to become a game designer or something. I don't know. Like, you'll figure out what you want. Sometimes it just pops in your lap, which is, I guess, the concept of dharma, right? Says like it'll find you, and and maybe that's true. But yeah, it can change. It's cool. You grow up, you learn stuff, whatever. I mean, I guess even as a kid, I guess you do want simple things, and then you just learn things, and the wants change. As a effing baby that doesn't know what the crap anything is, basically like barely conscious as of a being, you just want effing food and your diaper change. It's cool. When you do figure out what you want, if you can't do it, you don't truly want it, as we said at the top of the episode. But when you want something, you have an image of the final product in your head, and this gets into like really really spiritual stuff. When you want something and you have an image of the final product in your head, which again, like we'll talk about this more on an episode on like the universal laws or something. But if you want to succeed in life, you just need to know the answer to one question. What do you want? Then it's easy. Trust me. Figure out what you want. You want money? Easy. Doing it is easy. Go through college, get a job, you get money. Is money happiness, or will you be fulfilled after you get that? Different question, whatever, doesn't matter. If you want money, there you go. That's how you get money. Takes a lot of time, but it's not that much effort. If you want happiness, all right, so happiness is never going to come to you unless you want it. So I guess, yeah, if you want money, you're probably not wanting happiness right there. So, that'll be a later problem for a lot of people, it is. But yeah, that's a general recap, a little understanding, and hopefully, again, these two parts, hopefully not too depressing or anything. I guess indirectly, again, a little bit about me if you caught on to that, right? So if you didn't, this next section will be a little bit more overt, and the last section is going to be talking about, the effects of this, not knowing what you want, and the solution. Is there a solution to this idea? And before we get into the section of this podcast, I'm going to say now, thank you for listening. I don't think you've been brought down yet, as I said, but this section may do that. And if you continue to listen, and it does, my sympathies. If you don't, which is fine, thank you again for listening. Please like and follow this podcast wherever you're listening, and please share this podcast. Maybe share this podcast with someone who feels alone with this problem even. And with that, let's get on to the last section. Again, if you don't want to be brought down, you may, if you're not in a good place, you may not want to listen to this, but I don't think anyone would be listening to this if they weren't in a good place. We're not that huge. Podcast pretty small. I think everyone that listens is probably in like a motivated mood to give me a view or something. So you're probably still here. But yeah, the effect of this, when it becomes a problem at least, not knowing what you want, not knowing what your purpose is, the effect of not knowing your purpose, of not having a purpose, of not knowing what you want means, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, it makes doing things hard, right? If you don't know what you want, it's hard to do stuff. Or if you don't truly want something, it's hard to do anything. And hard in two ways. Either you don't perform well at life. In general, maybe your grades drop. Maybe everything you do kind of drops, except for, some people will distract themselves with video games and they get really good at that. But in general, a lot of things in your life becomes harder to do. And it could just be, again, in performance, like grades drop, you're bad at stuff and very whatever. And then the other way is obviously just mentally, right? You become lethargic, unmotivated. You're just not having a good time. Everything's hard to do, just in the sense of actually getting up and doing it, because it's too much, and because you don't know what you want. Like, why are you doing it? Right? Why? That question is the issue here. Like, why would you do it if you don't want to? Because you don't know what you want. Like, whatever. There's no point, right? But in terms of life, we can see how that may be a problem. Like we just, gave some examples of, everything becomes hard. Because regardless of what you do, every day, before you fall asleep, before you have dreams, you have a nightmare. That nightmare is one word: why. The pain you feel when you cannot answer that question, the pain you feel at the end of every single day, no matter what you accomplish, is ineffable, unable to be described by words. Because of that question, because of that curse, getting out of bed becomes hard. Brushing your teeth becomes hard. Eating becomes hard. Life becomes hard. Everything becomes hard. Everything becomes a chore. Everything is pointless because you have no point. You have no want. Why are you doing it? You don't know. It sucks. And usually though, I offer a solution to these things. So what's the solution for this one? I don't know. The solution I usually give, and I gave it earlier in this podcast, is you need to try things. You need to do things. You need to get up and effing explore, learn, and grow. Do stuff, etc. You know what I'm saying? You get the point. And you can do that. I believe in you, and I've seen people do it. It's extremely possible, and that's something. Actually, that's not very hard to do, but I guess you have to want to do that as well. You have to want to know what you want, and when you have that want, yeah, it's easy to do. It's easy to try stuff. It's easy to sign up for stuff. It's easy to go to things. It's pretty light work. But for me, and I guess this is going to be very directly speaking about me now, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I don't think I touched on it, but I've lived through this, the question of why appearing in my life, appearing in my mind, for nearly 4 years now. Since I was 15, I've had the problem of why. Why do I do anything? I've had the problem of everything being hard to get out of bed at times, hard to do anything, hard to eat. I distracted myself with whatever I did. At times I would distract myself in a very efficient way. So I would distract myself in a way that motivated me to get out of bed. Like I would use a distraction to get me out of bed. And that was an intelligible thing to do. But it still wasn't solving the problem. I should have, I probably should implement that intelligence to solving, this issue, that question, that curse of why. But yeah, for nearly 4 years, as I said, it's not fun. Every night going to bed, regardless of what you do, regardless of what you accomplish in the day, regardless of everything. Why? And to be honest, sometimes, not even sometimes, whenever I think about it, whenever I think about wanting and purpose, I think one day I'm going to die. And I think that even next to death, my last thought, it's going to be, why? I'm going to end it there. I'll see you next week. Once more, my sympathies. I love you. I believe in you. And you're not alone.